Hello and welcome to, I've just got the thing going on in the background. There we go. Oh, it's live. So hello and welcome to Live and Ready for You. And I'm your host, Helen Dunnett. We Are Ready for You is a network of international coaches and trainers, and we help organizations improve their people management, their performance, their sales, their marketing, their finance, their organizational change. I've bound to have forgotten somebody or something, so do go and visit our website, wearereadyforyou.com, and I put it on screen there, and some of my teammates will also put it into the chat. So every month I'll be chatting with one of our colleagues who's a trainer or a coach on a particular topic that they love. And their mission is to give us some practical tips within this half an hour that we can put into practice straight after the call that will make our work lives a little happier or a little healthier, or both. And a live wouldn't be very special without you wonderful people who have created the time to be here. So hello and welcome. Please say hi in the chat and tell me where you are in the world. I'm in Belgium. And throughout the show, I'm talking with Naheed today. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll endeavor to get Naheed to answer them. So I'm going to bring in Naheed while you are adding comments into the chat. Naheed Khan is a master practitioner of NeuroLinguistic programming. And she is the co-founder of a multi-award-winning consultancy based in Dubai called Futurwits. Let me just bring her in. Naheed, hello, welcome.
Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for having me here. Lovely to be here.
Absolute pleasure. So I'm really excited about this conversation today. So just before, where are you? Where are you in the world today?
At home in Dubai because it's a weekend for us. So
I meant to say thank you so much. Right, this is your Saturday. So thank you so much for making this possible.
No, that's all right. This was just a one-off thing. I usually don't work weekends because this is my day with my family. But yeah, right now my son is having lunch, so I could take this time out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Naheed, we are going to be talking about how do I align my values with that of my organization and the values in the organization, values and the culture of the organization. And I'm really excited about having this conversation because I do have coaching clients that, do wonder what to do when they feel there's a misalignment. So I'm really curious to know what you have to offer.
It's a very relevant topic, Helen, and something which in my career as an L&D professional for the last 20 years, I've observed more and more being the root cause of a lot of issues in organizations, as well as for individuals. And when I say individuals, I'm not just meaning the people who work in the organizations, but also people who are associated with those who work in the organizations. Because, we forget that when I am working in a particular organization, I carry that culture back to my home also. I bring it home with me. And I bring it home in terms of the reactions, in terms of the, emotional associations that I have with whatever has happened in the day or we are doing during the period that we are here in the organization. So alignment or misalignment is something which is so unconscious. People who consciously try to align, they do struggle. And they do struggle because, when you're trying to align something, you're trying to compromise, sacrifice. They don't try to adjust. And I've heard these words from so many people that, you have to sacrifice certain things when you are at work. And the moment they use that word sacrifice, what it does to the brain is that it gives a very negative, sacrifice as pain. That's what association the brain has with the word sacrifice. So it's a negative feeling. And when you have a negative feeling and you're trying to have a positive action, that alignment of culture, alignment of values, it's a positive action that you want, but you're associating it with a negative feeling.
Yeah, so you're giving something up.
Exactly. So even when you're doing it, you are not into it. You are doing something wherein you have to give something up. So you're not doing it willingly. You're not doing it being accountable for it. You are doing it because you have to, not because you want to. And that's such a huge difference between having to do something and wanting to do something. Have is a burden and want is pleasure.
Yeah, and a choice.
And a choice. Very well said that. So it's, yeah.
Tell me, it's what? Oh, okay. I was
It
gonna.
is
I
one
was
of the
gonna.
major reasons, why this misalignment keeps happening over and over again, even when we try to align it, even when we try to find a common ground. But when we are going from that mindset, or was what I call, the state of mind, which is, when you are trying to align something, adjust something, find a common ground, you have to be in a very resourceful state of mind. But when you're going from a point of view of sacrificing something, you're going from a very unresourceful state of mind. So that's where it is.
Well, that's a beautiful introduction, and I just want to take a step back
Mhm.
because as a coach, we should never assume.
Yeah.
What are values, Naheed?
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking this question, because people really struggle with identifying values. Plain and simple, Helen. I'll give you how it forms. Thoughts and words give us feelings. Feelings give us actions. Actions, when we repeatedly do something, it's behavior. Behavior, when we repeatedly do something, it goes into a belief. A belief, when we repeatedly follow it, function on it, it becomes a value for us. And values together, form the value system. Now we already are carrying a lot of values from our family, from our traditions, from our religion, from our spiritualism, from our education, from our society. There is so many unspoken and unconscious values which we have already put into our own system. We don't realize this. If you ask people, where does this value come from, so for example, I've had people who've said they value freedom. And when you ask where does this value come from, it actually comes from some beliefs which they have fought. And where does those beliefs which they have fought come from? It comes from either their traditions or their society or their family or somewhere which is not their own. I did not bring it in my life. So you fought that, and hence for you freedom became a value, which is not the right way to identify a value, because it was something which you were trying to fight and take out of your life. Yeah, some people do stumble upon their values when they are doing this fight. So it's when we plain and simple try to understand what values are, simplicity in understanding that those beliefs which you have, those beliefs which you function on, those beliefs which make the basis for your decision making, those beliefs which you live on, which create your belief system. It's not about one belief, it's about a bag full of beliefs which actually go into creating your belief system. And when you function, you live on those belief systems, you then incorporate it in your life as values.
Wow. Okay. And so, why, knowing that I've got this combination of different values and these belief systems, why is it important to align my values with my organization's values and culture?
All right. If, say, for example, somebody values integrity, it's very
Mhm.
high value, all right? And in the organization that I'm working with, now here, maybe integrity is not one of the top values. Maybe qualities, maybe something else is, or something which is not being portrayed as being as the top value. It may be in the written sheets, it may be in the procedures, in the SOPs, but it is not something which you see in the environment, which you see happening in the environment.
Right.
Right. So here is where the misalignment starts happening, because I know that this company has integrity as one of its top values, but I don't see it. I don't find it. I don't, I am unable to associate with the environment with this particular value of mine. Now, when that happens, it does impact not just your mental well-being, but also your productivity and your performance, because the way that you are uh, showing up in your organization is not the true you, because there's a conflict which is going on inside you. So when your values are not aligned with the organization, more than anything else, there is an inner conflict which is happening inside you.
Right.
When and that inner conflict is what then stems into and starts giving you stress,
Right.
then moves on into, and giving you all kinds of reactions which you have to stress. Like, for example, people say, I'm stressed because I'm snapping. No, snapping is a reaction. You are stressed because of something else. You are stressed, and when we try to analyze what it is that is causing me stress, it is those intangible things which you can't see. It is those, these things which is there in the environment, and most importantly in the culture. And culture comes from behavior, darling. There is no culture without behavior. And when we talk about behavior, it is not just talking about the behavior of the leaders, but we are talking about the entire organization as a whole. Even the behavior of the person who's, the one who's standing at the door and opening the door for people to walk in. Culture comes from every single person who's there in an organization, who live, breathe, follow the values of an organization. And these values mostly, and I'm telling you from the experiences that I've had, mostly these values are things which are brought in from top down, and they're put in for people to follow. These are our values, and this is what you need to follow. And when people come in, you get these 5 6 values that you need, this organization, you are asked to associate with it. You're not given the opportunity to own them. People don't own those values, and that is where the misalignment starts happening. Because until and unless I own the value that I am, working in the organization has, I will not be able to adjust. I will have to sacrifice. I will have to compromise or give up. When I start owning those values is when I start adjusting. And that's when the alignment starts happening. That's when the alignment process begins. Because then I try to find those, 1 or 2 points on which my values are aligned with the organizational values. You may not have 100% match. You may never have 100% match, because every single person who comes into an organization comes with their own set of values, own set of beliefs, own set of behavior. And an organization is a collection of these people who come together for a common purpose, a common cause. Do we look at it from that perspective? We don't. What we look at it is, I've got a job that I got to do. I look at what I'm supposed to give, contribute. I don't look at that what my contribution is doing in the organization further. And it's not just always the fault of the people or the employees. It's again, here brings the culture. The culture comes into play. When the organization, no matter how big it is, makes the person who joins an organization feel that you're part of a family. And this family has these values, just like you have yours in your family. This are the values that we have in this family, and you are now a new member in this family. And we welcome you, and we'd like you to, become, not just associated with us, but a part of us. That kind of a culture which absorbs people in is what then people get, that the one who have come in, they move also into the same place where they are now absorbing the organization's culture. So that's when they start finding the alignment. But to create this alignment, that's the second step. The first step is, I should know what my values are.
Okay. And well, that's a really good question. So how do I find out what my values are?
There are various exercises that people do take to find out their values. But what I would suggest, and it's a very plain and simple thing to do, is that, look back at the decisions that you've made in your life, the major ones especially. And just try and identify what were the criteria on which you made those decisions. What beliefs did you have? What beliefs do you still have about yourself? Where do these beliefs come from? It's sometimes people have a perceived understanding of what their values are. And the reason is because there is so many beliefs which are there, which are associated with our values, that we do not even realize that these values may not be something which I have put into my life, but it is because of those beliefs that they have come into my life.
Absolutely.
I live those values because it is from those beliefs that these values have originated. So identifying those, asking yourself those questions, what makes me believe in this? What makes me do this? What makes me do it this way? Becoming curious to know yourself, your own actions, the reasons for your actions, the source, the origin of where those, the criteria for those actions are coming from.
Yeah, I have so many questions now that you said that when you first were describing the whole setup, and the one thing I have seen in organizations is you have got these values written on the wall, right? And and yet what you hinted at was that actually they're not necessarily the values, the lived values of an organization. So how do you create alignment? Is it between employees and companies? Is it an employee's responsibility to kind of find alignment?
Okay, I'll give you an example to explain this. I had done a workshop a couple of months back, before COVID, rather, I should say. Yeah.
You mean like a couple of years back?
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks that long ago, but it's actually just a few months that we've been in this. But in this particular workshop that we were doing, we had the MD, CEO, and we had the office boy till that level, people sitting in the same room. And I usually do ask, when I do, especially when I do workshops on culture, I do ask that every single person in the organization should be there. It doesn't matter whether the person is at a senior level or the junior most level. It doesn't matter, because anybody who's associated with this organization is a part of the culture. So we had quite a few, around 60, 70 people in the room, and we having this discussion on values, and I asked them the values, and the senior management, of course, were the ones who were telling me the values. And then I asked the people, there's the values, and they did tell me the values. But I'll tell you something, when they were talking about the values, their body language was, yeah,
they just were listing them off, right?
Yeah, so I'm telling you things just like when I was studying for my school exam or college, my exams, I was preparing the answers. So I have the answers. I've gone through them. It's my theory which is inside my head. All right. So they listed it. They told me the values. And then I asked them the question that, what is the behavior that you associate with this value? Behavior of every individual in this organization that you're associated with these values. Let's take one value, honesty, and then let's just talk about how do you associate, what behavior do you associate with this. And we had this discussion, and it was very interesting to see what kind of alignments they had created in their own mind with the values, which was, to be very honest, not there.
Okay.
So in the course of the conversation, and I had taken prior permission from the senior management of doing this, because I wanted to, we had spoken about the values. They had this problem that the values were not being lived because the organization culture was suffering. So I said that in this complete workshop, we will be bringing out values from your people. The values which are already there, let it be there. But let's see what more they have. And then when we went in and we started talking about, okay, how do you associate? What behavior do you associate with this organization? What are your understandings of the values of this organization? They came up with values in which, yes, 3 were on the list, but 3 went.
Wow.
So it's like you had those values which were put up on the walls, but they were not being lived, believed, understood by these people. What they understood may be a different interpretation of the same value, but the way that they were putting it out was different. And it was where, when you take it from them, is what they are giving you is the aligned value, darling. Then you don't need to make them do an alignment, because the ones that they are giving you now is already aligned with their individual values.
Wow. And is this something that you would recommend? Is it a one-off exercise, or is it something that...
I've done this exercise for approximately 5 organizations now in the last 2 years. And it has been a 2-day workshop that we do, but it is culture changing, because it completely changes the way people associate with the organization, and the organization, has been perceiving their people.
So if I just take away, so really what I'm hearing is that Yeah, somebody with great intentions might have come up with what they thought were values, but really, if you want to have values in your organization, you need to get your team. You need to get the organization, everyone together.
Absolutely.
And what they're doing
Absolutely.
is they are using their own language to describe the behavior that they see and the things that they choose, the actions they choose to do that live those values.
Exactly,
And
because
yeah,
a values, the organization culture is created when people live those values. If they don't live those values, then the culture
right.
is not what you want. It is something which you probably don't want, or it is something which you don't understand. I had another organization, wherein when I went there in the very first meeting, and I had seen on their wall, this was an ISO organization, so they had their values which had to be pasted on the walls. And as I was sitting with the MD and the chairman, and I asked them, okay, who gave those values? Where did you get those values from?
Yeah.
And they were like, so we did an exercise where we had hired consultants, and we sat down with them, and then they brought out these values for us. So I said, okay, so people who are not part of your organization gave you these values. Yeah, based on they did the research, they did the analysis, they did the study. I said, agreed. Then the next question was, how many people live those values? Or, in fact, forget about that. I said, how many of your people, how many of your employees, if I ask them, can state every value that you've written there? And they were like, no, we did the exercise with them where we did tell them these are our values and the code of conduct and the code of behavior and everything that was done with them. And we keep doing regular exercise on understanding the values. But it was all about, I give you what my values
Mm.
are. I don't ask you how much do you accept and own what the values of this organization in which you are a part are. See, the thing is, we forget here, an organization, if you look at it, is just like a family. All right. And just like when we are in a family, we may be from the same family, but we all have our own unique behavior, unique perceptions, unique identity. Even being part of the same family, two brothers may be completely different in terms of their thinking pattern. That
I
does not
know.
mean, exactly. That does not mean that there is a conflict in values. They don't have conflict in values. Being from different and having a different behavior does not mean that you don't believe in the same values. They do. They live. When you walk into someone's house, you don't get individual conflicting values. You get the value of that family. You get that feel, that warmth. Same is with an organization. It's a culmination of people coming from different backgrounds, different society traditions, upbringing, whatever it is. They all have their own stories. But when I create an environment in my organization which says that, this is what we live, this is what we breathe, this is what we believe in, when people start, and when this is something which I have also accepted, acknowledged, and owned, then when I walk into that organization, no matter what my differences are, I will live those values, I will accept those values, I'll own those values. That's when I create a culture in an organization. And that's not a culture which is being forced, but a culture which is evolving from the people.
Wow. Okay. Because you actually answered my next question. You've been talking about culture because I wasn't sure how the two link together. But I see that. So the values define the behavior, which is then developing that culture.
Yep.
Before I go on, I just want to quick say hello to a few people who have come in. In fact, we've got Paolo from Brazil. We've got a few of our ready people, which is wonderful to see you there. Lisa, Sissy, Patricia. And we have a question, which I will just quickly read and see if it's a good time to bring it in now from Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Hold on. Okay, it's about hiring process. So I'll hold on to that one, Patricia, and I'll bring it in a bit later at the end. So the thing that I struggle with to have an answer for, so I'm really curious to know what you're going to say is, you've kind of half mentioned it, but I'd love to have more on the question. Do you have to let go of your country culture if you work for an international organization?
Not at all.
So
Not
how
at
do you
all.
do it then? Because
Okay. See, this is where where I know what my values are. Okay. And I know how important they are for me. First thing. Second thing, where are they coming from? I'm from India. I work with people right now. I'm working with people from 15 different nationalities, different countries, on different parts of the globe. You know, when I sit with you, it's not about me, it's about you. When I walk into organization, it's not about me, it's about you. But if the organization has values which are absolutely opposite to who I am as a person, then that's where I feel that stress, right? I need to be able to point a finger and say, these are the reasons why I'm feeling that. This is where it is not aligning. Probably something in my values which comes from my traditions. When I am aware which of my values are the ones which are coming from my traditions, I can hold them down. I can hold them down, or at that point, when I'm working with an organization which is an international organization which has got a diversified culture, what I look at is that these people are not from my tradition. How am I expecting them to understand my traditions? Here what happens is when people come in from different regions to work in an international organization, the very first thing that you need to understand is that your expectations are based on your upbringing, traditions, region. It's not necessary that the other people will have the same expectation or even understand your expectations. At that point, it is important to understand which are the ones which I can express. If
Mm.
it is completely, say, something in the organization which is completely opposite to who you are as a person or what you believe in as a person, now that's a conflict which is very difficult to manage. You can, it's not that you cannot, but you really have to work on how do you find an alignment in that. Because no matter what it is, Helen, every value that we have, when you actually unwrap those values and look at the beliefs, that's where you will be able to find an alignment. If you look at the value, see, a value is like a treasure chest. All right. And inside that, there are so many different types of gems and stones, which are your beliefs. Yeah. Not all gems and stones are ones which are shining. There are some which are black and which have negative energy. Looking at which are those beliefs and trying to disassociate them from your values is what will then create a little more room for creating that alignment.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if I am working in an international organization, you said you used the word hold down, but maybe so. I think what I'm hearing is to be more aware. Okay, these are my traditions, these are my beliefs, and actually, because I choose to work for an international organization, I actually need to drop expectations that people know my beliefs because I'm Indian or because I'm Chinese, and to come and instead I am, what would you say concretely that I need to do?
Let me put it in another way here. When I am coming to work in an international organization, all right, and I know that there are people who are not aware of my traditional beliefs and values, then at that time, it's maybe hold down here is basically hold down your expectations for them
Okay.
to understand and you be able to relate. They may not be able to relate because it may be something completely new for them,
Yeah.
just like it is new for you to relate with their values, with their beliefs. See, it's like when you start putting that lens within and you look at, okay, this is me, it's not everybody. you know I expect people to be like me. I expect people to understand me.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That is actually wrong because everybody is unique. Everybody has their own journey, own story, own set of backgrounds, own set of traditions. You may be from the same region, from the same neighborhood, but you will have different values because you have different family traditions, different family values. So it's when you come into an organization, it's understanding that this is a new family and it has its own set of culture and values. Now, I need to be able to find those places where I can create an alignment, and I need to find those places where I need to, adjust myself because it's a new place, it's new people, and basically here, Helen, what is the main thing is that awareness, being
Yeah.
aware about self and being aware about others. I would say having, this is where we are talking about developing your emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
because diversity is a given. Diversity is a given in your same family with your same siblings. You may have difference of opinions. You're talking about a different organization of people from different origin. What are you expecting that everybody's going to understand you? That's where it comes, that's where it goes wrong. It goes wrong with expectations.
Okay. We have whizzed through half an hour, if I'm looking at my watch correctly. But I do want to put Prajesha's question online.
Mhm.
So she's asking, what would you advise a person that is hiring in the hiring process and wants to be sure that his or her values are really aligned with the new employer's values?
Mhm. Usually people do not ask this question when they are in an interview board. They should ask, and especially an interviewee. Uh, the candidate should certainly ask this question, that what are your values? What is it that you value in the organization and in your employees? Because we research an organization. When you go for an interview, we usually do our research on the internet and we find out about the organization, but that does not give us any information about the values of an organization. And when
Yeah.
we are going for an interview, how many times we actually do ask this question, that what are your values? We stay away from asking any such questions,
Yeah.
whatever be the reason, whether it is fear, insecurity, nervousness, self confidence, whatever be the reason. But the fact is that we feel we are not entitled to ask these questions. Of course we are entitled to ask these questions, because we are giving our own contribution also to an organization. It's not just about what the organization is giving us, it's also about what am I giving to the organization. So it is my accountability to ask about whether there is a fit in the organization or not, whether the values of the organization is something that I value, I believe in or not. So it's important for the candidate to ask this question, number one. Number two, look around you. Look how the people are. Observe. You will be able to get the feel. The air that you are breathing will
Yeah.
let you know what is happening in that environment. You will get to feel that.
Wow. Well, that was a whirlwind trip into values. Now, I'm going to see if I can recap some of the key messages that you shared with us today. So correct me if I get it wrong. So step number one, we should really know our own values. And by doing that is look at some of the major decisions you've made in your life and I guess see what was driving those decisions to help you identify, your beliefs and what's important to you. I think that, so ask employer what they believe their values are. So answering that question there with Patricia, but also ask the employees what the lived values, how do they behave? And you'll identify the true values of the organization, which might not be the same as what's written on the wall.
Exactly.
International companies. So it's about becoming, if you are more aware of your values, it's not so much about suppressing your values. It's to say that are your values more important than actually making a connection with other people in your organization, because they probably don't know your culture and your background and what's driving you. So it's better to have a conversation for curiosity with other people and to drop assumptions that they might know what's important to you. So it's really that connection, curiosity. And and I think for the job interview, it's ask. Ask what the values are. And if you don't think that they're genuine, as you're saying, take a look around and see how people are behaving.
You will get to know from the behavior. You will get to know from the body language of the people who are around you. I'm not saying you need to be a body language expert in this, but you actually will get to know. You will see, you will feel it in the air, the energy, the environment. And another thing that I would like to add here, Helen, is that we've spoken a lot about what the individual needs to do, but I would also like to suggest here that organizations need to understand that values are not things which you need to put up on the wall.
Right.
Values are things which you need to have open discussions. Values are things which you need to have, exercises and activities on. Values are things which you need to make sure that people speak every day in the organization. So it's not just for a few, it's for everybody. So it's like, it's an inclusion that you bring into people's life, that when they enter into the organization, then they identify themselves with those values which the organization is saying that we live or we breathe or we associate with. So it's creating that environment, creating that opportunities, creating those um, activities, those engagements where people are not just doing team building and communication, but they're doing values. They are connecting with each other, understanding each other's values, respecting each other's values, and then trying to see how together as a team I bring in alignment of the values of the organization and the team's values. Because there is an individual value and then there is a team value. A team value is based not on every individual value of an individual, but it is based on what is the team working on, what is the team's goal, what is the team's aspirations, and then how am I associating my values with that to give that particular performance or that particular result which the team is working for. So then that creates another value here. There is another culture which is created, which is the team culture. So that team culture, and I have seen this also in organizations where the team culture is not aligned with the organization culture.
I've seen that too.
Exactly. So where is this misalignment coming from? Where is this culture misalignment coming from? It's basically when people are not aware of their own, that they actually fall into this place where they are not aware of what they are living, what they are doing. And this leads to a lot of emotional stress in people, because the behavior that they have to do is not the behavior that they associate themselves with. And we hear a lot of people being not happy with the job. It's not the job, it's the culture, it's the people, most of the time. Because the fact is, when I am getting in from one job to the other, I'm still getting in doing the same thing that I'm doing. And somewhere, even if I don't enjoy the work, I start enjoying the process of the work. I start enjoying the routine of the work. I start enjoying something about that work because it is now in my comfort zone. All right. So it's when I am doing that work, it's what impacts me most. And I'm unable to see this. Most of the time, people are not conscious about this when they are changing jobs, that it is maybe they're running away from some people in the organization or some behavior in the organization. They're not running away from a job until and unless it's not giving you any growth or any kind of opportunities for development. That's there also. There are also reasons why people leave that job, because they're looking for better growth and opportunities. But in most of the cases, people leave the job because of the environment, either the colleagues or their bosses.
Totally. It's a lot. It's a lot. Naheed, I'm going to have to leave it there because we have gone way over, but I could have gone on for another half an hour. Oh, we're going to have to get you back and carry on the conversation. So thank you so much for giving me your Saturday, your weekend, and sharing us some views on how to align the values. How can people get a hold of you, Naheed? I've put these things on screen. Do they visit your website as well?
Yes, of course. My website is futurwits.com. They can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I am on Facebook and Instagram, on Twitter as Naheed Inspire. So you can join. I'm there on the social media, although I'm not very present out there all the time, excepting LinkedIn, where I'm more regular. But yeah, I'm there on all social media. And yeah, you can just write an email to me and I'll certainly get back.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. And before we go, I just want to give a heads up to everyone if around what we're doing next time. So next month, I'm chatting with Johan Biener, and he'll be sharing some secrets on how to have effective sales conversations.
Wow.
And yeah, after 30 years of work, so I think he probably started about 5 years old. And these are things that he wish he had known at the start of his career. Now, I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb, and he might kill me for saying this, but I've already had an initial conversation with him, and I actually think this conversation is goes broader than just if you are in sales. I think if you're trying to get anything done through other people who are your peers, perhaps they're in a different department, perhaps they're just in your team and your project manager, perhaps you're working with another organization and you're trying to get work done through other people, I think this next conversation is also for you. So that's just a little heads up, and we'll of course do our usual promotions. So thank you so much for your time. Sorry we ran over a little bit. Naheed, thank you so much. I wish you the rest a lovely weekend with your family.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen. Wish you all a very good weekend. And thank you so much for having me, Helen. It was a pleasure speaking. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yay!
Yeah, Secrets of Sales. Yeah, that's going to be impressive, I guess. Yeah.